Good morning. Today is July the 16th, another Tuesday morning here, and we'd like to welcome you to another edition of the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, Earl Kitchings, and as always, joining me every Tuesday is my co-host, Ms. Ronline Cannady. Ronline, good morning to you.
Good morning, Earl.
Hey, Ronline, do you remember an old soap opera called As the World Turns?
Yes.
And for those of you who are in this new generation and not really familiar or don't know what a soap opera is, it's just another TV show, fictional TV show. But there were several, and parents, grandparents, even when I was in college, you know, there would be uh, young ladies who would rush home between classes so they could watch an episode. And I think the longest running one to this day is The Young and the Restless. But as the world turns, well, I bring that up because the world is turning. It's not like a gyro yet, but it is turning and spinning, and it's just un. I can't. It's, I know I want to say unbelievable, but it's just almost unimaginable the things that are going on in our country today. And as of this past weekend, something that I don't think we saw coming, uh, but there was, and I'm gonna just be honest. I'm gonna call it a so-called assassination attempt of a popular convicted felon. That's the only way I can put it. I can't put it in the political correct way. I'm not going to put it in a political correct way because someone who's been convicted on 34 counts as a felon. B, based on the way things played out, uh, it did not really look like a true attempt on a person's life, based on the individual and those watching what was going on. Because most time when gunshots happen, people scatter. They don't stand around and try to figure out what's going on and watch and look and got their cameras out and taking pictures and taking videos and all of that. Folks didn't move. They just stood there like, well, what's going on? Why did he? So that is what transpired this past weekend. And my first question of our show today, which is titled AR-15 or ERA. AR-15 or ERA. And based on what happened on Saturday with like I said, I'm gonna call it like I see it, a so-called assassination attempt. Will there now be a gun control law enacted in Congress? That is now the question, because we have documented that there have been 80 cases where the most popular weapon in America for those who are gun enthusiasts purchased, the most popular one, the AR-15, there have been 80 usage of that weapon in crimes of the destruction and the death of adults and children. But now that there's been this attempt on a convicted felon, will there now be gun control law enacted? Because as we stated, I believe last week, there is no test or certification or whatever you have to do to buy or use a weapon of destruction. But I have to have a license to drive a car, operate machinery, fly a plane, drive a boat, go fishing, cut somebody's hair, fix your plumbing, fix your electricity, certifications and licenses for all these other things, but no license is needed for me to walk around with a weapon. And in some states, you can walk around with the weapon fully exposed and it's not a problem. And hearing about people going into stores like Target and Walmart with AR-15 strapped across their chest is just one image that really should make everybody pause and be like, oh my goodness. So there was an attempt, so-called attempt. They call it an assassination attempt. Kind of weak to me based on what happened. But so the AR-15 or the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, for those of you who don't know what ERA means, but the AR-15 is the most popular weapon of choice for Americans who prefer to carry a long rifle. The most popular. The most popular. 1994, Congress passed the Public Safety and Recreational Firearms Use Protection Act. That's a long one. A federal assault weapon ban that prohibited the manufacturing of more than 100 firearms for civilian use, not for military use, just for civilian use, including the AR 15. This was 1994. 10 years later, that ban sunset, which means the ban expired as Congress failed to secure sufficient votes to renew the ban. So, with that being said, that Congress failed to renew the ban, then Congress has to look at the blood on their hands for all the deaths that have occurred from the mass killings from AR 15s because you had the power to continue to put a ban on the most destructive and most popular weapon that Americans choose to purchase and choose to use. But you did not, and you have not. And for whatever reason, you will not put a gun control law into action. But I have to have a license to drive a car, to go fishing. So when we talk about the AR-15, and Ronline, if you would bring up that image of what this weapon looks like, just so everyone knows, that's an AR-15, and the that forward long piece of armory that's hanging down, that's the clip that an AR-15 holds, and it holds up from 20 to 30 bullets. And there's a picture of the types of bullets that can be used in the AR-15. And as you can see, they're not the typical bullets you put in the handgun, which means it can be shot at a further distance and with more power. And here's a description of what that particular weapon is. It is a lightweight, semi-automatic rifle based on the old AR-15 manufactured by the Colt Manufacturing Company. This particular weapon has been just the weapon that folks want to purchase. I mean, it is just one that particular weapon. I mean, if they go to the gun show, they go to a gun store, whatever. This is the weapon. I mean, and the estimates show that a lot of people own this particular rifle. The National Shooting Sports Foundation estimated in 2016 that approximately 5 to 10 million AR-15 style rifles existed in America. And it is thought that 300 million firearms are owned by Americans. So don't get the two numbers confused. It's not saying 300 million Americans, 300 million. And if I may take a page from uh, the guy from one of the movies, million, 300 million weapons, firearms owned by Americans. AR-15s are owned by 24.6 persons in America as of a Georgetown University poll in 2021. 24.6 million persons. So that's at least one of these per person. Imagine if they've got two. But this is the weapon of choice. And this is the weapon that was used in the so-called assassination attempt on Saturday of a convicted felon. And had it been any other felon doing that, they may have stopped them before they got started with shooting, but they did not. So this weapon has been in effect for a long time. Let me just give you some specs about it. The barrel length is 20 inches, sometimes 16 inches. 20 inches is standard, 16 is carbine, 24 inches is target. So I don't know if the young man was using the target or the standard or the carbine, but if you saw some of the images of the law enforcement officers on a rooftop shooting back at him, they looked like they had the target ones because in order for you to be accurate, you got to have a scope. You don't need a scope if you're in combat. You don't need a scope. But if you're in sniper mode, you need a scope to be exact. And based on the shot, I guess this would be called the second shot that was heard around the world, if you want to frame it that way. Uh, he had to have been using a scope on that AR-15 in order to even want to shoot that. Now, if it comes out that he did not have a scope on that particular weapon, it's going to bring up some additional questions because you definitely cannot shoot from a distance of 150 yards without a scope on a weapon in order to be exact. It uses a .223 cartridge. So as you can see on the image there, those are the images of it. And you can see on the very right, it's kind of a blunt point tip on that cartridge, and the other ones have a very fine point. It is certified military specs, and it has a lot of firepower. Now, let's talk about the cost, because it came out that the father of the young boy, he was only 20, that shot the weapon. The cost ranges on this anywhere from $500 to $2,000, depending on what model you're looking at. But the average cost is about $850. $850. So if you go to a gun show and you got a couple of $1,000, you can get a couple of these without any worry of checks. I mean, in this day and time, they could care less about, they just want to sell them. So here's the cost of a weapon that was used in the so-called assassination attempt. And there's still no desire to have gun control laws to minimize the use of these high-powered weapons. It just really is mind-boggling. And this is all about people being able to maintain their Second Amendment rights, which the Constitution states that it protects the right to keep and bear arms. This Second Amendment came out in 1791, along with 9 other articles, and these other articles comprise 10 Bill of Rights. The 10 Bill of Rights. And it was influenced by English common law in the English Bill of Rights back in 1689. Times when, it was a lot of wilderness. You live, I mean, in England, it may not have been as much wilderness, but in America, it was an undeveloped country. So you're dealing with a lot of wilderness, and you had a one-shot weapon. It wasn't an automatic weapon. It wasn't a semi-automatic weapon. So one shot, you had to reload it, shoot it again. And this is what people are so enamored about maintaining, that they don't want their Second Amendment rights taken away. I don't think there is a effort to take away that particular right. It's just that you want to make sure that those people who are going to be using it, like you have to do with a vehicle, you have to take lessons for driving. You have to pass a test with a certified driving instructor from your motor vehicle department of your state. And they determine, after you take a written test and the road test, if they're going to issue you a driver's license for you to operate a vehicle on the roads. Now, you don't hear that many accidents, comparatively speaking, I guess, for fatalities of people purposely running into people or running over people. A fatality most times comes from an accident in a car. There's no accident when somebody's shooting an AR-15 at people. That's not by accident. That's by choice. Let's keep the lines clear and unblurred. You got an AR-15 strapped across your chest, as the young man did back in Wisconsin, Minnesota, running down the street with it strapped across his chest. Uh, there are only a couple of things he got in mind: shooting at wild game, which ain't no wild game on the streets, or shooting at people. And to say that you are protecting your life, because he had a choice. He didn't even have to be there. He could have gone home, but he chose to be out on the streets with this weapon. So now this weapon has become the weapon of choice, and it's been used in the so-called, and I will say that the media and everybody else will say it was an attempt, but you know I'm calling it what I see it, because for those of us who were living in 1963 when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and at the time of all the confusion, there was only one person to have fired one shot that killed President Kennedy. But later on, as they looked at and reviewed the footage, and they started identifying other things, because not only did he get shot, but the governor of Texas, John Connally, got shot too. So if Oswald shot one shot, how did two people get hit? So if you fire a shot and I'm sitting up and that shot causes me to go forward, then I will go forward toward the front seat. But in order for me to come back up, something had to probably come from the front to cause me to come back up. Excuse me. So here's a kid, 20 years old, decided that he wanted to take out a convicted felon. with a long rifle. And they don't want to institute gun control laws to minimize such actions. But I ask the question again, will Congress now enact some type of laws now that this type of uh, activity was done against someone they want to have re-elected as the president of the United States? So, Ronline, I'm going to pause here before I go through the mass shootings list, a brief mass shootings list of incidents that the AR-15 was used in, and let you just weigh in a little bit.
Well, thank you, Earl, for bringing this topic to light today because it is a question that has been asked over and over again. And so many people, have rallied for gun control in every state that I know of. This is an issue. And I'm hoping this time, because of someone who's been injured, and let's be clear, they were not shot, they were injured um, by glass. The bullet missed them. Okay. So hopefully it doesn't have to turn out to be a fatality of the popular people, where this could have been avoided. Now, if it was staged, shame on them, and from the way everything seemed, from the way everything seemed, it seemed like it was staged. And if it was, shame on them, because innocent people died as a result of that staging, if that's what truly happened.
Well,
As in the insurrection, there were innocent lives taken as a result of someone's carelessness, choice of words, if you will. So, in this day and time, we have more college graduates than we've ever had before. We've had more people receiving their PhDs than ever before. More people have their actual credentials in Congress, in the Senate, attorneys, everything. We have more educated people than before, and we cannot come to the agreement that gun control is needed. People have suffered for it, died for it, and going to suffer for it and die for it even longer as the days go by, that this is unchallenged. So before our break, Earl, I'm going to turn this over to you because I can see me now being in the pulpit with my mic in hand, walking the floor, if you will, like, wake up, people. We talking about woke. We need to wake up. And we need not only wake up, but put some action to for the next people that will be injured or lose their lives senselessly to the lack of gun control over the Second Amendment rights. Come on now.
Well, you state that very eloquently by saying, there was not a person who the person did not get shot. He was injured. And, you said it was a piece of shard glass from the teleprompter that clipped his ear. Because if you look at that weapon and you look at those bullets, if a bullet with that kind of clip tip to it actually hit where they say it hit, a, a portion of your ear, as tender as your ear is, would have been ripped. But that's not what it doesn't look like that happened. I mean, a piece of glass caused that, so I mean, it's all kinds of ways of looking at what happened. But, um, and as you stated, Ronline, if this was a fabricated event, and in my opinion, I don't put it past the people who are wanting to be in control again. My thing is they will do anything to gain control and power again of the country because they now have a manifest that they want to follow. This incident only carried more dollars to come in because greedy business people and greedy politicians and just the greed of it all and the power of it all is what people are seeking. So I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, if he if a person can incite people on January the 6th to storm the Capitol, this was nothing to stage something like this. And I mean, that's just the way I look at it. I've witnessed, not directly, but the three most traumatic assassinations in the country's history since 1960. A president, the brother of the president as a presidential candidate, and a civil rights leader extraordinaire. And Ronnie, let me tell you what was said last night, that part of the reason why we're in the situation that we're in this country right now is Dr. King's fault. It's Dr. King's fault. He helped push some things in place. So the rhetoric is just unbelievable, and it's amazing that all this rhetoric can happen for things that have minimal value, but the rhetoric to institute gun control so that children and innocent adults are not murdered or killed or injured will not come to fruition. They won't do it. And as you know, one of my favorite sayings is follow the money. Follow the money. And the money on that side is getting, I mean, they're not dealing with buckets anymore. They're dealing with troughs of money. Forget a bucket. They're dealing with troughs. If a man is willing to put out $45 million a day for 100 days to do whatever he's trying to do to curry favor or position himself to do some things, or even if it's just 45 million for one time, that's a lot of money for political gains and power, for your business to be, a monopoly of some sort, of for you to have the edge on everybody else. Anyway, this is the Kitchings Table. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m., we like to start our shows. Sometimes we don't always start where we want to because we're trying to get all the things we need to do in order to line things up, but sometimes technical issues happen. But this is the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, W.R. Kitchings, along with my co-host, Ronline Cannady. And every Tuesday morning, we just like to bring you a topic of note. Some topics are fun. Some topics are ultra serious. Some topics are in between. But this topic today, AR-15 or the ERA, is of significant importance simply because of what transpired this past Saturday with the so-called assassination attempt of a convicted felon. I'm not going to put it any other way because that's just the way I feel about it. I mean, you tell a felon who is in prison or who has been released from prison that they've lost their rights to vote. That is just law. If you're a felon, you cannot vote. But a felon can run for the highest office in the land. You know, and Ronline, check this out. You know what somebody put out on the internet recently? That the felon convicted of 34 counts, guess what he cannot do?
He cannot vote.
He cannot vote. Now,
But he can run for president.
but he can run for president. So this just shows you the topsy-turvy situation our country is in right now. So anyway, moving right along, let me just run through a list of these more popular shootings in the country at the hands of an AR-15. The Boulder shooting, Boulder, Colorado. 2019, the Jersey City shooting. 2019, the Midland, Odessa, Texas interstate shooting. 2019, the Dayton shooting. 2018, the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh. Nashville in 2018, the Waffle House shooting. The Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in 2018. The Millcroft, Pennsylvania shooting in 2018. The Rancho Tehama Reserve shooting in 2017. Sutherland Springs in church shooting in 2017. Las Vegas shooting, Plano, Texas shooting, the Lincoln County in Mississippi shooting, the Orlando nightclub shooting in 2016, the San Bernardino, California attack in 2015, Colorado Springs in 2015, Santa Monica in 2013, homicides in Sun Valley, New Mexico, the Webster, New York shooting, and the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting in Newtown, Connecticut in 2012. So those are the most highly publicized AR-15 shootings in the last 12 to 13 years. But there have been at least 80 mass shootings in the country, and the AR-15 has been the gun of choice. But yet, no gun law. Sandy Hook elementary children, a lot of children lost their lives, and their families are still decimated by this. The Orlando shooting, the nightclub shooting, people are still decimated by that. The Odessa shooting, the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting, incident after incident. So when we talk about the Bill of Rights in the United States, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution were adopted in 1791, and they constitute a collection of mutual reinforcing guarantees of individual rights and of limitations on federal and state governments. So we talk about the democracy of the country being at stake with this upcoming election, which bleeds over into your Bill of Rights being at risk because people want to minimize or eliminate some of these things, tear down the Department of Justice, do away with the Department of Education. There are a lot of things that people want to do to destroy this country and the freedoms that we now know and enjoy. So our Bill of Rights. But then we get to the Equal Rights Amendment. The equal rights. We got a Bill of Rights and then equal rights. And I'm going to start with the 14th Amendment to the Constitution that was enacted in 1868, declared that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdictions are citizens thereof. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens thereof. It forbids the United States to abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States or to deprive any person, it does not say this person or that category of people, any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. Liberty and justice for all. These are on the line. So the Equal Rights Amendment is a proposed amendment to the Constitution that has been asked to be enacted to prohibit sexual discrimination. And it was written by Alicia Paul and Crystal Eastman and introduced in Congress in 1923 as a proposed amendment to the United States Congress. When the 14th Amendment to the Constitution was adopted, the Equal Protection Clause, which guarantees equal protection under the law, did not apply to women. And if it didn't apply to women, you know it did not apply to people of color, i.e., slaves. It was not until 1971 that the United States Supreme Court extended equal protection to sex-based discrimination. But between 1948 and 1970, Chairman Emanuel Seller of the House Judiciary Committee refused to consider the Equal Rights Amendment. So for 22 years, we're not letting that ride. We're not having that amendment. We're not doing that. We're not going to let there be any type of equal rights. And in listening to people spout off about who should have the rights to do things, and hearing them talk about, well, one of the things that I heard as they were talking about it on news talk was that if an airlines or a flight had trouble, then more than likely there was a black pilot. If there was some issue with a plane, there must be a black pilot, and black men or women aren't capable of flying planes without incident. Let me remind all of those individuals who think like that. Go ask your grandfather, your great uncle, your grand uncle. Go ask any of them who flew a bomber plane in World War II over Europe. Go ask any one of them, would they be alive? Would they have survived World War II if it was not for the Tuskegee Airmen flying cover for them in World War II? Because up until the Tuskegee Airmen, which was a group of all black pilots who had been trained to fly fighter planes, until they came on the scene to protect the bombers, America was losing bomber planes dropping bombs over Europe, especially Germany. I mean, they were getting knocked out of the sky like you would not believe. Go ask your relative who might have flown one of those planes. Would they be around today? Would they have life? Would you be around had they not survived that onslaught of German fighters taking those planes out of commission? Had it not been for the black pilots, the Tuskegee Airmen, had they not flown cover on all those missions for all those planes, because they never, it's been documented. And you can say, well, that's not really true. That didn't really happen. Ask your relatives, did it happen? Ask them if they flew on a mission and were able to come back after the Germans knocked out a lot of planes, and then when these black pilots flew cover, that stopped. Ask them, because they saved a lot of lives in those bomber planes. And let me tell you, in World War II, a bomber plane carried about 9 individuals in that aircraft alone. About 9. You had 2 gunners on the side, 1 gunner at the back of the plane, 1 gunner under the bottom of the plane. So that's 4. You had 1 at the top of the plane. That's 5. You had a navigator, you had a bomber, and you had 2 pilots. That's 9. And every time one of those planes were shot down, 9 individuals died. Go ask your relatives who saved their lives and see what they tell you. And for those who choose to follow an individual who says that people of color are of no value, have no importance, did not do anything for the country that we have lived in the country they served, they're not deserving, they're telling a lie. They're telling a lie. And if they believe it, they are liars. And if they follow the individual who's talking that up, they're not only liars, but they're cowards. Because a lot of black men who flew those fighter pilot planes, they lost their lives trying to protect your relatives so they could get back. So don't tell them, don't spout off about if the plane is having trouble, it must be a black pilot. Let's go up here and find out if it's a black pilot. Okay, that's the kind of foolishness we're dealing with in this day and time because folks want to turn the clock back. They want to take everything and reverse things. They want to make sure that the only people who matter in this country are of a very, very, very light persuasion. We are in serious times. And if we don't, as Ronline just said, woke up, I'm not going to say wake up, woke up to what's going on, a very dark day is on the horizon. And these folks are serious about their intent to destroy democracy and bring in autocracy, i.e., dictatorship. Now, Ronnie, before I make my last statement and we get to your segment about Black history, something crossed my mind as I was looking at the fact that we spend a lot of money and energy buying products from China. Would you agree with that?
I do.
Yet, China is our so-called enemy. But you spend billions of dollars over there to get products from China, but yet they're supposed to be an enemy. So you take American dollars and fund China. And they send back products that we use. So TVs, computers, all these things. So it's a hypocritical thing when you look at, well, if they're our enemies, why are we buying products from them? Why are we sending our money over there? Oh, they're cheaper. Okay, but that's as far as it goes. After business, we're not doing the China thing, right?
So, my understanding, the reason why things are higher is because you need 3% of the population to buy into those products in order to bring the price down. So if you're
3%?
not doing that, yeah, if you're not doing that with the USA products, of course it's going to be a few dollars higher. As you see, it is a few dollars higher. It's not like it's a whole lot of money higher, but just a few dollars. But they rather spend what they spend for China products than for USA products. But as I said, 10% of the population is what's needed in order to bring the cost down.
Okay, well, 10% of America's population is 30 million.
Right. And 30 million people aren't buying into American products, apparently.
No, not when things are cheaper labor. I mean, everything's cheaper because of, but if you go there and see, exactly why things are cheaper, well, number one, they have more people, more labor. Their labor force is, you know, 3 times what American labor force is. and they have the factories to do all these things. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense that they, you can do business with China from that perspective, but at the same time, it seems hypocritical that um, you buy from a country that is a communist country, but yet you want
Fighting
their
for
products.
democracy. Yeah, you're fighting
Yeah.
for democracy and you're not supporting
Communism and communism and democracy. No, that's out the window when we talk about business.
them.
When we talk about the almighty dollar, that's out the window, man. I'm going over here and get me some Nike shoes that were made in China.
Hmm.
And when we were coming up, anything made in China, Japan was thought to be the cheapest thing. You don't want no, you don't want that. But now you got to have it. So anyway, Ronline, that's where we stand. I'm gonna turn it over to you for your Black History moment.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I pray that you all receive something out of this today because it's a sad day, and it's going to be a sad day if we keep allowing things to go forth the way it is. So, my Black History acknowledgement is Dr. Adrienne Lentz Smith. She's an associate professor over at Duke University. She teaches in the history department, and she teaches about civil rights movement, Black lives, modern America, and history in fact and fiction. Right now, I want to say about this lady, um, just beautiful indeed. The reason why I looked her up is because of what Mr. Kitchens talked about today, dealing with Alice Paul and Crystal Eastman. They were fighting for equal rights for women. They were a part of the women's suffrage. Well, with Dr. Lynn Smith bringing things about that, you can go and research her work. Um, when she was talking, when she put that little film together, talking about the equal rights amendments for women and how far we have come, I began to look into her literary work that she has done as well. So, for those of you who um, are familiar with her work, uh, she's received awards for her from the Black Caucus of the American Library Association for her book of the Freedom Struggles, African Americans in World War One, published by Harvard in 2009. If you will go and just look at some of the things that she talks about, go and look at some of the videos that she has done, her work just speaks for her. And I can't say enough about this lady. I wished I knew more about her, had been following her for some time, but her work speaks for her. And I'll turn it over to you, um,
Okay, well, thank you.
Mr.
So
Kitchen.
as I close out this morning on our topic of excuse me, the AR-15 or the ERA, in essence, the Congress of America chooses not to firmly enact laws to control guns, while firmly enacting laws to minimize equal rights to all citizens via the ERA Article 5. With the rise of 2024 politics, all human and citizens' rights of America are in danger of being lost. Loss of life, loss of rights. Please understand where we are in this day and time. Please understand who's out there wanting to cause and inflict the pain. And please understand that businesses are seeking to be the source behind the money that is causing this to happen. We've had a great day this morning. Thank you for tuning in to the Kitchings Table. We hope you join us next Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. For my co-host, Ronline Cannady, I'm W. Earl Kitchings. Until next time, as we always say, go out and do something good for somebody today. Till next Tuesday, everybody. Take care.